Phanopyron? There you go. Okay. So this is Hawthorn, and this is what's called a Washington State hawthorn, and it does acclimate very, very well here. The species is Phagopyron, Crataegus phagopyron. And what's beautiful about these trees, they acclimate to this climate very, very well, and they are really, really heavy producers. Believe it or not, these trees have already been harvested for the year. So we don't actually cultivate hawthorn. You can see all the berries forming. We don't cultivate for the berries necessarily. We cultivate for the leaf and flower, which is a very, very important part of the materia medica. In fact, in hawthorn, in the case of hawthorn, it's the leaf and flower in the German materia medica that is considered useful, not the berry. But we use leaf, flower, and berry. We get our berries from Europe and use the leaf and flower from these trees here. And we make a very beautiful, I think the very best hawthorn medicine available today. It's very highly concentrated, as it should be, and it's useful for cardiovascular disorders. Particularly, we call hawthorn the cardiovascular tonic, which essentially means it provides nutrients to the heart, it provides important phytochemistries to the heart. There's trace minerals in hawthorn known as calcium chloride and calcium fluoride, which actually are very important to enable the heart to beat. And so those trace minerals feed the heart the proper nutrition that it needs. Hawthorn is very, very good for rhythmical disturbances of the heart. It's very good for valvular disorders. Some people take it to normalize blood pressure. I don't think it's the best thing to normalize blood pressure, but it can have a mild hypotensive effect for high blood pressure and a mild hypertensive effect if you have low blood pressure. So in that respect, it's really good because it's modulating. It's an adaptogen. We call it a cardiovascular adaptogen. And what else can I tell you about hawthorn? One of the things that we use hawthorn berry for, which is actually not known by a lot of people, is for connective tissue injury and disorders. And so if you ever tear a ligament or break a bone or have some sort of connective tissue injury, the more recent the better in terms of application of hawthorn. But using hawthorn berry solid extract, which is a product that we make, about 3 times, 4 times a day, a teaspoon of it, for 3 weeks can really mend that injury very, very quickly. What it does is it goes in, the chemistries of hawthorn go in and they actually build these cross strands into the connective tissue and reinforce it and strengthen and heal it all up. So that's a wonderful use for hawthorn berry. Also, another use for hawthorn, both the leaf, flower, and berry, is for children who have ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and especially for children who have ADHD with insomnia, who can't sleep or difficulty sleeping. This is oftentimes referred to in Chinese medicine as a disturbed shen, and hawthorn is a particular, very specific remedy for these types of children, even adults who have ADHD with insomnia. So I think it's one of the more important remedies. It does not really have a very effective cholesterol mitigating property. How many are interested in managing cholesterol? Yeah. You know, the thing is about, for those of us who are baby boomers and beyond, you know, cholesterol management and cardiovascular wellness management is really, really obviously very important. And I think, I just deviate for a little bit, one of the things you should think about, a few things you should think about in managing your cardiovascular wellness is to look at inflammation, to look at oxidative stress, and to look at the levels of the acid-alkaline balance in your physiology. And because if you really want to manage the plaque buildup, which we all have, I'm sure, to prevent it from becoming destructive plaque buildup. You know, have you all heard of the term vulnerable plaque? Has anybody heard of that term? I know our resident MDs have. How about the rest of you? No, I'm surprised because, you know, in the literature, 1 out of every 7 heart attacks happens away from the site of plaque. And what happens is essentially, if you have a lot of oxidative stress, which many of us do, you know what oxidative stress is? Okay. What happens is those oxidative stress molecules can attack plaque that's vulnerable. We call it immature plaque or soft plaque. And what it does is attacks it and causes it to potentially rupture. And the rupturing can cause little particles of plaque to spill off and circulate downstream and get clogged in an artery or a blood vessel, which can cause a heart attack or a stroke. So essentially what we're talking about here is a way to mitigate vulnerable plaque. And the way you do that is by lowering the oxidative stress on your physiology, reducing the inflammation, and creating proper acid-alkaline balance by adapting your diet to a more alkalizing diet. So I like to use Hawthorn for that. I like to use a plant called turmeric root. I've only heard of the spice used in curries, turmeric. Tremendous anti-inflammatory to reduce the inflammation. And I like to use other broad-spectrum antioxidants. There's a lot of them. Basically all the berries like elderberry, acai berry, hawthorn berry, bilberry, there are so many, even ginkgo has tremendous antioxidant properties that mitigate the oxidative stress. And I think it's important as we age to consume lots of foods that have these antioxidants in them and support our diet with antioxidants. So I think if you're looking for what can you do to support your heart as you age and reduce the risk of this plaque being so vulnerable. Plaque buildup is something all of us have. And I've actually read studies where people who have matured their plaque, where the edges of the plaque are smoothened out and somewhat hardened off, it's called mature plaque, are much, much less vulnerable to heart attack or stroke because that mature plaque is not so susceptible to oxidative damage. So Hawthorn becomes a very important key factor in managing cardiovascular wellness. Yeah?
Why don't you use your own berries? Why do you buy them?
We simply don't have enough. I have about 250 trees, and this year we harvested, you probably would have to go on the second and third row, but you can see the trees cut down. I cut the tops off of all the trees behind the front row this year, not all of them, but a good amount of them, and harvested the leaf and flower. We may have some berries. I mean, obviously we'll have some berries here, but we use about 10,000 pounds of berries annually, and these trees will only produce 1,000 or 2,000 pounds. But we get all the leaf and flower that we need for our annual supply comes from our trees here.
I have a question, not necessarily on this. You mentioned when we stopped before that you have sometimes people go out and gather different things for you.
Yes, while harvesting.
Yes, but then how do you go about, maybe that's a whole different thing to talk about. How do you go about thinking, well, maybe, do they know what they're looking for? Or do they just bring you things and you think, well, maybe this will be, how does that work?
You know, when we first moved here, we had all kinds of people bringing us things. And these were people who lived up in the mountains who saw, you know, wild leeks to wild ginseng to golden seal, and thinking that we would be a good candidate to buy their goods. That's not the way it works with us. We have very, very selected, highly selected, skilled wildcrafters who are either botanists or herbalists who have stewardship on forest lands or who go out to remote areas and gather for us. Jackie governs that whole program, and it's a highly, highly developed program, which we call it ecologically wildcrafting herbs, because essentially we have a criteria of conditions upon which people have to wildcraft under, like they can't over-harvest. If they're harvesting certain herbs, they have to just replant some of the root in order to perpetuate the growth of the plant. Things like that. They can't be so close to any toxic areas or any habitated areas. So we use people who really understand these rules and can certify, you know, that they've harvested in this ecologically sensitive way.
Rick, do you want to introduce them? The doctors of the natural
Sure. Come and introduce me.
Community that
Yes, here.
Hi, I'm Glenn Ingram. This is my wife Marty, and we just moved to town in actually October and started our practice in Pisgah Forest in December. And so one of the things that attracted us was having Gaia herbs here and being able to have such a low shipping cost. Yeah, and so it's wonderful to have this kind of resources here, and we're happy to be able to come to a place and be some of the first naturopaths here.
What do you do?
Oh yes, we good question. So we are basically doctors who use nutrition and herbology and homeopathy as our main therapies, as well as some body work as our main therapies for treating anything. We're basically primary care physicians is the way we are trained. And yeah.
Where are you located?
And Pisgah Forest, right on 280, on the way to Asheville.
Do you have a name of your business?
Address? Bring cards? Yeah.
We're gonna have our info up at the tent, but we're Through the Woods Natural Health is the name of our business, and we are online, so you can look us up. We'll come right up. You put it Through the Woods in.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Ask us questions anytime too.
Gaia Herbs has a great collaboration with the naturopathic community. We've worked with one of the colleges in Arizona. There are four or five colleges now, five I think.
Well, the fifth one is getting started.
In the U.S. that train and license naturopathic doctors, and so it's a wonderful collaboration we have with the naturopathic community. All right, if there are no further questions, we're going to go down to the greenhouses now. And you guys on the tractors, just park by the greenhouses and we'll look at the greenhouse operation.